So in the news recently is a conspiracy theory about this picture. Now the conspiracy theory is from the moon landings, that the moon landings were faked, and that in this picture you can see a stagehand. Now there's already a lot of theories out there debunking the conspiracy theories, particularly at Mythbusters episode, which tells you why the moon landings aren't fake. But this is particularly close to me because I am a stagehand and it's what I do for a living, so I'll be able to give you a bit more of an inside look about how stagehands dress and how they act on a set. So this is the image itself up close, and if you take the theory to be true, then it shows a guy or a girl. It could be a girl, but given this is back in the day, I'm going to suggest it was a guy with long white or grey hair. His arm is clearly here. Some kind of pale coloured top. Some kind of dark pants. And then boots. And then down here is clearly his shadow. Now again, if it's true, there's a few potential people that it could be. Including not just a stagehand, but a director. People have suggested that Stanley Kubrick directed the first mission, but could he have directed the other subsequent missions? But this is an image I gathered from just googling Kubrick. You can see that the fashion's kind of similar, but the hair is completely different to what the image suggests. It could also be one of the actors, a runner, a cameraman, basically anyone that was on set at the time. But I'm suspicious of all of those suggestions because if this was faked with government control, you'd expect the person directing it to be super controlled and suspicious about who's in front of the camera and who's behind the camera. But that doesn't mean to say that movies don't have problems. There's this image from the movie Gladiator which shows a cameraman with jeans on the set. So if you look at what he's wearing, you kind of expect a stagehand of any kind from the theatre, the movie industry, the TV industry, to wear boots of some kind. It's a safety thing, it's also a kind of status, manly thing, but it's mainly used as a safety thing. And back in the day, in 1972, it's actually kind of fashionable to wear that kind of clothing on the feet for a man. And these are kind of an example of the things I'm talking about. I think maybe in the original image they're kind of darker, kind of black or grey, but again you can't really tell because it's a black and white image. You could take the rest of his costume to be some kind of black or work jeans or work pants of some kind, and then some kind of hoodie or white shirt. It seems to be that he's got his left arm within his top, as if he's got a hand in a pocket somewhere, maybe to keep warm, like a hoodie or something. According to Wikipedia, hooded sweatshirts have actually been around since 1930, but took off in the 70s. So if this was filmed in 1972, then it kind of makes sense for him to be wearing a hoodie, and that might explain the white hair, or seemingly white hair. It's not actually white hair, it's just the hooded top. But then you could also just suggest that the connection between his head and his body, the size of his arms, the size of his legs, and the height of his boots suggests he's wearing a spacesuit, with the top half of his body casting a shadow on the bottom half of his body, making it appear darker than what it actually is. Really, he's wearing full white, but the shadow is making it look black. It's not uncommon for stagehands, particularly in theatre, to wear costumes as part of being on stage. That way you can take props on and off, or push pieces of scenery, still be lit on stage and visible to the audience and seen, but not noticed as a stagehand because you're not wearing blacks. It makes sense to do this on a film set, say if you wanted to make things look like they're weightless. Well, that guy could be there to operate some kind of specialised equipment that has to be used on set, from the side of the set. Now there aren't any explosions or anything like that in the footage, but there might be something. It's very difficult to think of what it could be, though. And that's one of the reasons why I'm debunking this myth, is that why would someone need to stand on set unless they weren't meant to be there? I've just done a bit of research on this footage. Apparently one commentator has said already, back in the day they used to take light readings on set, and that's what the stagehand could be doing. Another commentator says that the astronaut doesn't look like he's wearing any kind of life support backpack, which you'd expect for an astronaut. There's another theory that because the image is being reflected on a circular visor, that the image of the stagehand would distort to meet the circular visor. But I can tell you as a lighting technician that only matters from the perspective of the viewer as to what gets distorted and what doesn't get distorted. So you can see in this round mirror image I've got that the garage is less distorted than the car, because the car is being reflected on the part of the mirror that's more curved away from the viewer, which is, in the case of the photo, is us, and therefore the car is more distorted to us than the garage. And it's a similar case with this. If the stagehand was, or astronaut, was directly behind the photographer, then he would reflect back into the photographer's lens perfectly, whereas anything outside of that range would get more and more distorted as the visor curves. Now the snap actually comes as it's a photo from the Apollo 17 mission. Now I said earlier it was the first moon landing. It's not. It's the Apollo 17 mission, which the first moon landing was Apollo 11. So this is 6 missions after that. Now, as part of that mission, Harrison Schmitt and Eugene Cernan were the 13th and 14th people to walk on the moon. Schmitt was the first person, and then Cernan was the second of that mission. Now, Cernan was actually the last man on the moon. It's pictured here on the left. Now, the mission was carrying out what was called the Traverse Gravimeter experiment. Basically, it was designed to prove that gravity is relative depending on where you are on the surface of a planet. And the astronauts had video cameras strapped to their chests, and obviously highly protective visors to protect them from UV rays. Now that rock is a rock called Tracy's Rock, and I believe that's the rock that we see in the photo. And the person going behind it here is Eugene Cernan. So they were on the Taurus Littrow, excuse me if I pronounced that wrong, part of the moon, which you can see pointed out there. So Eugene, known as Jeans in the photo, and Harrison, known as Jack, is the one supposed to be taking the photo. The original image that I didn't actually find on the main image library for the mission, but I did find it on a print that was being sold on Amazon. And you can see that the original photo shows Eugene next to some kind of measuring equipment of some kind. In case you're wondering, the rock was actually named after Jack's daughter. So the images from the mission were actually scanned from the International Space Center from various prints there by a guy called Ron Wells. And this photo clearly shows the locator from another angle. Now the crosses on the photo indicate that it was taken by the actual cameras used on the mission. And there are actually several types of cameras used on the mission. This is a picture of a Hasselblad data camera, which was 70mm and carried by the astronauts on the lunar surface. The crosses on the photo are actually what's called a Réseau grid, and it's essentially a plate put in front of the camera with crosses on it to give you a sense of distance between objects. So there's only 2 people that go on the moon during this mission, and you might be thinking, then why isn't the guy in the reflection therefore taking the photo? Well, you can see in the visor in this photo, in the very bottom half of the visor, that it's actually the rover taking the photo, which would explain why the guy in the reflection isn't taking the photo. I admit though, even I got fooled a little bit, because in the bottom left corner of the visor you can see what looks like a hand leaning on the dust, but on closer inspection you can see it's just the foot or an arm of some kind of piece of equipment next to a rock. The point is, it's difficult to see why anyone would go through the trouble of faking 6 missions, faking all these photos, all this equipment, all this research, naming a rock, photographing that particular rock multiple times. And there's bigger, much wider implications to the conspiracy, that the theories that they proved about gravity are incorrect, and that the Russians somehow haven't found out about this and hacked them like you'd expect from a competing nation. I believe the fuzziness of the image of the reflection is what's causing the conspiracy, because it looks like something that is not quite what it is. But I can tell you that it's a fuzzy photo of a reflection of Harrison Schmitt, aka Jack, from the Apollo 17 mission next to Tracy's Rock. But what do you guys think? Is this photo real or fake? Let me know your opinion in the comments below and subscribe.